Hi. So I just finished the second half of Bridgerton, and if you haven't seen it, don't watch this. I'm not gonna really give away too many spoilers. I'm just gonna cut to the chase about the things that are severely different than the book. Some things worked, some things didn't. In the book, Eloise is never angry at Penelope. They never have a falling out, and she's always on her side as a friend. But in the show, she finds out that Penelope's whistled down very early on, and she's always angry at her. In the book, Eloise doesn't really become Cressida's friend. In the show, she does. I was gonna give it a chance to see, okay, maybe Cressida's got like a changing story, and she like finds happiness and becomes a better person. In the end, she just like gets sent away with like an aunt who is supposedly terrible. But before that, she tries to blackmail Penelope because she finds out her secret about being whistled down, which is in the book. And then Penelope and Colin get married. And, it took me a while to get cool with their story because I thought the way they presented Colin in the beginning of the season, he was like a little too into himself, a little too stuck up. Like, look at me, I'm handsome. And he was kind of like a pirate whore or something, I don't know, sleeping around and stuff. And yet he, like, in the end realizes he's in love with Penelope. And then, afterwards I got on board with it because he seemed really to have those feelings. And, the writing and the lines of the script were better. So, it got good. And I kind of liked how they tried to make Penelope and her mom like work their stuff out and family stuff go better. I don't know what I thought about the whole Francesca story at first because, it's kind of all over the place because the books go book 3 with Benedict's story and him finding his lady love and getting married, and then it's Colin and Penelope, and that's years later. And Francesca, I think, in the storyline of the book has like eloped. I think she elopes. I have to reread it. It's like runs off and gets married, I think, in Scotland or something. So, whoever has read the Francesca story knows that there's this cousin. Let me see. I have the book. This is the book. Michael Sterling is the cousin. So he like falls for her and she falls for him, and later there's all this guilt and stuff. So the biggest reveal, well, second to biggest reveal, since I'm talking about Francesca, I'll continue on Francesca. The big ending is all of a sudden this cousin of Michaela Sterling being introduced, and I'm like, oh, okay, so she's gay. And I mean, I get what they're trying to do. I have like some of these characters turn out to be gay or bisexual, queer in some way, and I just think the problem for me is when you read a book and you have these characters and they completely obliterate them. It's one thing to kind of change the storyline around a bit, but still have similar characters. It's another thing to like kill a character, because now Michael Sterling doesn't exist and Michaela Sterling exists, and then it just changes the whole story because I don't know what kind of life they're gonna have in that time period. I believe in the book, Francesca's husband dies before she can have kids, and then she remarries Michael Sterling, and then they have a family. I guess this is like Shonda's version of like, kind of mixing and matching like the old world stories with like modern stuff, and like what would be like to like what it'd be like to try to find love and be queer in that time period and all that jazz. But like it just takes so much away from like the books we've read, and makes you just go, what, when you see the story. Kind of similar like when they had the first season and second season, it had Benedict. And I read the first two books, and Benedict's kind of like in the side, and then the third book is about Benedict. And I think they have his whole story, like with him being an artist in there. I was really saddened to see, like, in the third season, like, all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm not an artist. I don't do much of anything. I was like, okay, so that's a lie because you were totally an artist and that was totally your thing. And next thing we know, he meets this lady who's not the woman for the third book. There was a part of me that always felt like even if the third season was going to be about Colin and Penelope, you still could have had him meet this girl. You could have woven those two stories, but instead they wanted to weave Francesca's story in between Colin and Penelope's, and sort of have sprinklings of Eloise's story too, because she talks about like doing letter correspondence and stuff with someone who we later will find out will be Philip Crane. But yeah, in the books, Benedict finds this woman and falls in love, and he is kind of sort of the silly guy or like the artist type, or comes in and out sporadically. But in the show, they make him seem more like he's really questioning life and what it means to be free, and questioning, like, I don't know, almost like sexuality and gender roles and things like that. And so he goes from like meeting this gay artist in the first season where you're like, oh, is Benedict's character gay? Because they very much allude to that. And then in season 3, he pretty much goes out and has a threesome with this woman he's with, Lady Tilly or Tillin. I'm going to get her name wrong. Who I thought was very pretty. And I thought, okay, yeah, good distraction for him. She's kind of seems like what we would think the gal in the third book was sort of looking like at the time, because I think she's described as a blonde in the book. Well, excuse me, but I'm sure they'll change that too. And then he's like diving in and kissing a man and all that jazz. And you know it's interesting because they had asked him on the show in the scene before, like, oh, would he ever? And he just seemed like, nah, I gotta go. And then he comes back later and he's like, okay, sure. So I don't know, it's just it's a lot to process. I don't know how I feel about it. I was kind of like, so yeah, they've taken a lot of liberties with Benedict's story, and they've completely turned everything on its head for Francesca's story going forward, because Michael Sterling doesn't exist anymore. The cousin is now a Michaela Sterling, a female cousin. And I was just like, what? So I don't know. I guess we'll see how that unravels in the next couple of seasons. But yeah. This makes me sad. It's like I usually reread the books before I see the next season, and now it's like, what's the point? Because this Michael Sterling is not the same person. Yeah. And then it makes me wonder, like, okay, so John Sterling dies, she ends up in love with this Michaela Sterling, and then I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be interesting if they're going to talk about like what it was like to be gay at that time and how to live your life and how to have a family, whether you wanted to have a family or not. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't want to have a family. Maybe that was the whole point of the story. But it just definitely throws me for a loop. And things were kind of different for Penelope the way it came out. Like in the book, her husband like celebrates her and says he's proud of her being whistled down, and they like do a cheers to her. But in the show, it's like the queen sort of almost figures it out, and then Penelope just comes out and says it at a ball at the end of the series. So, yeah. Anyway, so far I still think the second season's the best. Every season's got its up and down. So I liked some of it.